be a trip down memory lane. 130 pounds, soaking wet, skin and fucking bones, to my highest weight ever of 210 pounds, still being fairly lean. We're gonna break it down. What I did over the last 10 years, because it took that long, to change from 130 to 210 naturally without any PEDs. All right, we're gonna break it down. We're gonna talk about some of my mistakes. We're gonna talk about some things that worked, some things that I still do that helped me get to this position. You know what's good, people. We're gonna keep it a stack. And I'm gonna do my best to lay this out and give you guys and girls a proper perspective on what to expect. Experience, training naturally, putting on muscle naturally, and all that good stuff. What's Yo, Tyson in the house? Yeah, I see Kirby. Yo, what's up, Big Natty Daddy? Love, dog. You know what's good. Yeah. Afternoon, bro. Good afternoon, Tyson. I see over there on Insta, Donna on TikTok. What it is? What's up? What is good? I love everybody that tunes in. It's all love. You know what I'm saying? I appreciate you for giving me the time out of your day that you know you'll never get back. All right. So, first things first, let me know how your day is going, people. Tyson, how's your day going? Kirby, how's your day going? The Jar, how's your day going? Talk to me, y'all, as we set up for the podcast. And if you don't already know, I'm going to say this because it's formality. And now, for any new viewers, if you do have any questions, feel free to DM me if they're too private. If not, drop the questions down below and I'll get to them at the end of the podcast recording. All right. So let me know how your day is going. I'm gonna give you a couple seconds to talk about that. If you don't want to talk about that, I will literally start the podcast in like 10 seconds. Give you 10 seconds to let me know how your day is going. Max, what's good? Okay, 10 seconds are up. So we're gonna start the podcast off in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Yo, welcome to the Natural Nomad podcast, where we keep it real about how we feel and what we deal with in life. This is the number one podcast for anyone on this planet, country, or nation who wants to make an amazing mental and physical natural transformation. Disclaimer: I'm going to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear, not because I want to be mean, but because I fucking respect you. So, if you tune in and decide to give me the time out of your life that you know you'll never get back, the very least I can do for you is keep it a stack. Now that that's out the way, let's chat with IFBB Pro Matt Butale. Let's get raw, nomads. What's good, chess bras? Chess bras, what's fucking happening? Whatever the fuck you identify as, it's all good. You're welcome here. You know it's good. Before we dive into it, for anybody that just tuned in, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel at MATT space BUTALE, Matt Butale. If you want to see a little bit more of my life outside of social media, and if you want to actually catch these replays in the best possible quality. Also, if you have any questions, feel free to DM me if your questions are a little bit too private. All right. So let's break it down. 130 pounds soaking wet, like skinny as fuck, to 210 pounds and still lean, moderately jacked. I'm modest when I come to that. So it's like, I don't think I'm like the biggest person in the world. I know I'm not. But for what I was able to achieve naturally, I think it's pretty impressive. Like, I got to pat myself on the back for that. But we're going to talk about today four things, four main pillars of this conversation, which are going to be sort of regarding my entire journey, my experience going from 130 pounds to 210 pounds lean and putting on about, say, north of 70 pounds of muscle tissue in the last 10 years naturally. Again, so that's the first thing I want to let you guys and girls know. None of this happened overnight. This was 10 years in the making, and it's still in the making, I'll be honest with you. Um, Living Benefits Doctor, I appreciate the follow on TikTok, but let's break it down. Let's not be superficial. Let's not pretend like Instagram is the place in the world where people just have good things happen to them all the time because it's Instagram. Nah, social media is social media, but I'm gonna keep it a stack with you guys and girls and break down in four pillars and 4 points of this conversation and this podcast how I went from 130 pounds skinny to 210 pounds jacked, what I struggled with, and what I even currently struggle with now as I continue to put on muscle naturally. All right. So let's talk about this, the first pillar of the conversation, which relates to yesterday's topic a lot because it has a lot to do with the old school way of doing things when it comes to putting on size. Okay. So if you're familiar with the old school way of putting on size, it's like bulk cut, bulk cut, bulk cut. Like you get really, really heavy and then you get really, really shredded. And I know a lot of people still do that now in some way, shape, or form. I mean, technically, in a way, I do it, but just not as aggressively as I did in the past. Because when I did it as aggressively as I did in the past, it really, really, really set me back mentally. It set my digestive system out of whack. My metabolism was just not consistent. And it just wasn't ideal. You know what I mean? To be force feeding myself, and then outside of force feeding myself, to be cutting off nutrients, just to like make a weight, right? So that's one thing I want to just get out of the way in the clear and just out in the open. All right, just I got to be out, upright and honest. I stopped doing the old school method of bulking and cutting, and I actually stuck to what we now call main gaining. Essentially, what it is like you're just going to give yourself a slightly less amount of calories that you need when it comes to, if you're comparing it to like say your maintenance level of calories. So I think at the time, or the time that I started it, my maintenance level calories would have been between 3,300 and like 2,900, somewhere in between there. I'm not too sure. I can remember off the top of my head. It was like 3 or 4 years ago. And I would just cut down the calories by 200, and I would stay in that zone. I would just keep, eating what I would normally eat, in terms of like the food selection, but I would stay in the zone of being like 200 calories under my caloric maintenance requirement. And caloric maintenance is simply just, just simply put, the amount of calories that you need to consume in order just to stay the same weight. So essentially, on paper, I would have been in a slight deficit, which would have put my body in a state to just burn a little bit more fat, than it normally would have, and to hold on to less water than it normally would have if I was in a surplus, or if I was to be maintaining weight, right? So that had a thermogenic effect. It started to like help me burn fat a lot more. Not to say that I even had much fat at all. And that's one thing I want to like lay out here. My genetics are different. I'm not gonna toot my own horn here, but I'm well aware that everybody's born with different genetics. And I thank God for my parents, because I didn't carry much fat. I still don't carry much fat. And it's a lot more easier for me to control the amount of fat that I'm able to accumulate, even when I'm growing. Of course, I'm doing my due diligence when it comes to nutrition, but I cannot discount the fact that my genetics also do play a role. Maybe not the biggest role, but definitely a beneficial one. All right. So, yeah, I keep my calories pretty much somewhere around, would say, just 200 calories less than what is required to maintain my weight. And outside of that, I would make sure that I'm hitting at least at the time 180 to 200 grams of protein consistently every single day. Right. So that's just those were the two things that I did, and I replaced in order to, you know, continue to grow lean tissue over the span of 10 years and go from 130 pounds to 210 pounds lean. All right. And no, I'm not 210 pounds at this moment. I'm about 190, 192 pounds, ripped to shit, more ripped than I've ever been at 192 pounds. I competed at about 172 pounds, like at the lowest. And then I think by finals I was 175, but ripped out of my ass. I literally had shreds on my ass. Um, and that's just the reality of it, right? So the first thing was that I wanted to just lay down and just put out the way was, um I ditched the old school way of bulking and cutting. Like that just not fucking work for me. And I don't see how it works for many other people, but if they want to stick to it, they can stick to it. So the second pillar of this conversation of this podcast for today's episode of how I went from 130 pounds to 210 pounds naturally is the millions and millions of different splits that I tried along the way. When I talk about splits, no, I'm not talking about fucking gymnastics or anything like that. I'm talking about training splits, the bro split, whatever split you want to push, pull, anything, right? I tried it fucking all. I tried Arnold Schwarzenegger's blueprint to mass, blueprint to cut, Jim Stepani's shortcut to shred, uh, Jay Cutler's workout program. I tried every single workout program, especially in the earlier years of my training. And not to say that it didn't work, but I wasn't able to find a flow or find something to stick to that I could consistently improve upon. And like see in the mirrors in the reflection, like a good amount of progress, simply because I kept fucking switching the split. Right. So that's another big mistake that I really want you guys and girls early in your journey to not make, which is why I'm bringing it up. Because if you can't stick to a certain routine and stick to a certain flow, it becomes a lot harder to just be consistent in the gym. That's one thing that I've just noticed. And after I think 2 years, after the first 3 years of trying to, not trying to get consistent, because I was fairly consistent going between 3 to 5 days a week. for the most part of my bodybuilding career and just putting on muscle because I was a freestyle wrestler at the time. And I was also playing a little bit of high school football. So I would train not as much because I was already getting in, burning out, sorry, a lot of calories throughout the day. I'm, playing sports and stuff like that, right? Because I've always played sports in my entire life. All right. So, um, I would always switch the splits and I would get some results and then I just wouldn't get comfortable with the movements. And when I say when I wouldn't get comfortable with the movements, it's like it always felt like I was forcing something that shouldn't have been happening. There were workouts that I just wanted to do because in the magazines and in on the online articles it says these are the staple workouts you need to do if you want to build a chest per se, or these are the stable work or these are the staple workouts you need to actually implement if you want delts, if you want triceps, whatever muscle group. And I noticed that not every single workout works best for me. So I'm gonna have to pick and choose which workouts, which accessories when it comes to the engineered equipment to isolate certain muscles, like which of any of those works best with me in terms of my ability to be consistent with it, and of course, most importantly, my ability to actually garner results from them. Right. So over the years, I was able to pick and choose after switching millions and millions of different splits, workout splits, that is, and I was able to sort of create a workout protocol for myself that allowed me to target every weak point, pay attention slightly to some strong points, but less attention to the strong points than the weak points, and actually develop my physique symmetrically, and build a physique that now I'm proud of and continuing to become more proud of as it improves. But that's one thing I wanted to just lay out there. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. You don't need to switch your split every single fucking 4 months, every 3 months. You don't need to switch your entire fucking workout split, frequently. I'll tell you this honestly. Once I found that rhythm, or that rhythm came from me finding the few workouts that I like to do and that work best with me and help me, stay most consistent. Like when I found those workouts, I created that protocol and I've stuck to that protocol for damn near 5 years now, 4 years, 5 years. I've had the same split. And if I notice, okay, well, Matt, this weak point starting to flare or this and that and the other, I would use the variables like the amount of weight that I'm lifting, the amount of sets that I'm applying to that muscle group, so on and so forth. Time and attention. I would apply so many other like variables to aid my weak points and build up my weak points, make them catch up to my strong points, and balance everything out without actually having to rewrite the whole entire workout split, right? And I've known this to be true for a while because, like, even looking back at the old school dudes, they trained that same way. Like, they had their own routine for themselves, like specifically for themselves, and kept it that way for years. You know what I mean? If anything, if they switched it up, it would be after 5 or 10 years of doing the same split. And when they switched it up, it wouldn't be anything dramatic. They'd probably be swapping out 1 or 2 workouts, but keeping the bulk of the exercises pretty much similar. Right. So that's one lesson that I learned from the people that came before me. And of course, something that I actually learned by accident as I was just going in, along the motions, putting on muscle and going to the gym as a young adult, a teenager and a young adult, right? So it's that's one thing I just want to lay down there. You don't need to have a different training split every single 3 months, every single 4 months. I've been using the same training split for almost 5 years and it still works. I'm still improving my weak points. All I've got to do is replace one workout or change the weight, reps, or sets on one workout, and enable myself to isolate a certain area a little bit better than a strong point per se, and just continue to focus on that until it balances out and then focus on the next weak point. Because let's face it, the human body, as much as we can make it look symmetrical, it's asymmetrical everywhere. Like everywhere. One arm's going to be longer than the other. One leg is going to be thicker than the other. One side of the chest is going to be less or more developed than the other. Back, the same thing. Shoulders, the same thing. Traps everywhere in your body, even though it looks symmetrical, in reality is just not symmetrical. Like natural human bodies are asymmetrical, right? Period. Full stop. Blank. Like that's just what it is, right? So being able to pay attention to my weak points and parts of my body where that are asymmetrical, I was able to just tweak my workouts slightly, tweak my workout protocols slightly enough to still be able to improve my strong points, but at a slower rate than I would for my weak points, so that I could make them catch up and develop that incredibly sought after aesthetic symmetrical physique. Okay, so that's the second thing. You don't need to do millions of different splits in order to change your physique, right? You need to stick with the workouts that work best for you, that your biomechanical range of motion favors, and that you can actually stay consistent with. That is showing you results. All right. So the third pillar of the conversation here, guys and girls, and I've talked about this a jillion fucking times. It's facts. Consistency over intensity. Guys, girls, 130 pounds to 210 pounds without PEDs because it took fucking 10 years. It took fucking 10 years. And I'm not saying that each and every single day I was in the gym for 10 years straight. No, there were times where I was out flat out months. I just didn't fucking go. There were times where like I would only train 2 times a week. There was times where 3 times a week was too much for me because of my work schedule when I was a security guard. Um, but the whole point is this: consistency over intensity, but intensity still fucking matters. Because if you show up and you're not, giving your all and putting every single ounce of blood, sweat, and tears into it, you're doing your work. Don't get it twisted, but you're not doing as much as you could possibly do. And therefore, you're not going to yield as many results as you could possibly yield. It's just fact. But if you had to ask me, Matt, is it more important to be intense or is it more important to be consistent? The answer is consistency, because I could have been intense for just like 3 years and just been sharp 5 days a week, 6 or 7 days a week for 3 years straight. And then the last 7 years, not do a fucking thing. Do you think I look the way that I look now? Or was it better that I sometimes hit 5 days a week, sometimes hit 3 days a week, some weeks or months I hit 2 or 3 days a week? But the fact of the matter is that I never actually stopped. I remained consistent, even though my intensity may have wavered. You know, I didn't stop. And it's because whenever I went there, I made sure I was laying it down, putting every single ounce of blood, sweat, and tears, all my effort down, like pretty much essentially every time that I showed up. So even if I did show up 2 times a week, I'd fucking feel it, right? And I'd always work my way back up to getting to like 3, 4, 5 days, 6 days a week consistently. And for the last 3 or 3 years, for the last 4 years, I've been averaging between 5 and 7 days a week consistently. The least I would do is like 3 to 4, and that's if I'm doing like a deload, taking time off because of I did a show, and just giving my body some time to like essentially recuperate, which is essentially a part of the process, because recovery is like almost everything when it comes to training, which is another thing I wanted to bring up. If you're training your ass off all the time and you're not doing your due diligence when it comes to recovery, good fucking luck going back into the next day and being intense or as intense as you want to be. It's just not going to happen, especially without PEDs. I mean, when you look at it, PEDs give the people the advantage of putting on more muscle faster, while being lean. Just so many other things, healing joints, all that stuff. And when you're a natural athlete, you got to do the extra guesswork in the background when it comes to relaxation, when it comes to resting, when it comes to recuperation, therapy, rehab. Like you got to do all the extra guesswork in the back to make sure that you remain consistent and that you can actually, move in a forward trajectory, right? So if you're doing your due diligence when you're busting your ass training hard in the gym, hats off to you. You're absolutely saluted. But you must do the other end of the stick too. You must be able to be aware of the fact that you are a natural athlete and that you need to actually take a breather every now and again, even though you kind of feel like you can, thug it out. Like those are the most dangerous times, because that's when you actually fucking get injured, right? Thank the God upstairs that I did not ever get injured. And knock on wood, I'm not speaking that into existence, but it's because I do my due diligence. I make sure that when I can, I go to therapy. When I can, I lay off. I take a few days off. I take up, I cut my workload in half essentially. If I go there and I'm showing up 6 days a week, I'm doing half of what I'm like normally doing when it comes to the amount of sets, when it comes to the amount of reps. The weight would stay the same. As I said, intensity in some manner, but you got to be, we'll say, proactive instead of reactive, and give yourself a break before you're forced to have a break because you're injured. Does that make sense? That's one of like the main pillars that kept me without an injury from 130 pounds to 210 pounds lean without PEDs. That makes sense? All right, guys and girls. So the last and final pillar of today's conversation is to set high goals, even if you fail, keep pushing. All right. This one is a fucking corny as shit. And I honestly hate the fact that I'm bringing it up, but it's so fucking true that I had to bring it up to you. So let me just walk you guys and girls down memory lane. When I was, if you saw my picture that I posted today on my Instagram timeline, when I was about 13, 14 years old, hitting a back double bicep or whatever. I don't know. I think I was doing pull-ups or some shit in my friend's basement. Um, and I had in my mind, I was like, dude, when I get out of high school, because I was going into high school at that time, I believe 14 or something like that. Well, one of the pictures, I was like, dude, when I get out of high school, I gotta be 200 fucking pounds, and that's it. And I was like 130 pounds in like grade fucking 8, 9, right? So that's 70 pounds in 4 years naturally, which just wouldn't have happened. Right. But that's the goal I set. I just said 200 was the number, and this is the look. And at the time, the look was fuck. I don't know if you guys remember. I don't know if how old or young this audience is, but if you ever watched Saved by the Bell, Mario Lopez. So the guy was like the fucking guy in high school, the football jock and just jocked to shit when he compared him to all of his friends and whatever. And I'm like, I gotta be that guy. Like, I don't know why, but like when I was watching that show, I'm like, bro, I'm gonna be fucking AC Slater, bro. And I'm gonna be 200 pounds before I leave high school, and that's that. And I'm gonna train my ass off until I get to that point. Long story short, I felt 20 pounds, fucking 20. I felt 25 pounds short of my goal. I reached the cap of 175 pounds by the time I got out of high school. And I was discouraged as hell. Like, yeah, I was mad that I didn't get to 200 because I believe me, I was working my ass off. I was taking my supplements, doing my best with meals. Of course, I wasn't consistent as I could have been, but again, I was a teenager, not cutting myself any slack there, but I'm just telling you the reality of my experience. I set a ridiculously high goal, or at least what was a ridiculously high goal for myself at the time. Strive to achieve it, and I failed. Dead ass. I just failed. I didn't get to 200 pounds by the time I was 18 years old. I actually got to 200 pounds by the time I was 20 years old. But the thing that kept me going was the fact that I knew I didn't hit that goal. See, and by the time I was 19, I did my first natural bodybuilding show, and I said for the off season, I'm gonna make up and do what I was supposed to do last year because I was 1 year out of high school in 2017. So 2016 was the 12th grade year, yeah, and then so after my first show, I said, okay, full send, and then that's where I made the full mistake of like doing the old school bulk just to try to put on a whole bunch of weight, which was mostly fat and water. But when I came down from that, and I bulked up to I think 204, 202, or some shit like that. I broke the 200-pound barrier. I'm like, woo, got the goal. We secured the bag. But I don't look the way I want to. I literally barely have abs. I have barely lines across my body, which was something I was not used to because I'll be honest with you. Thank God for my parents. I was just born lean. And I never really carried fat, and fat was easy for me to burn. Plus, my nutritional habits just I never really ate a whole bunch of shit. Just didn't care for it. I was not a big eater growing up. Um, so those things all kept me in line. So when I hit 204 pounds, 202 pounds, I was like, yeah, no, this needs to get under control. Especially if I want to compete the next year, which was the plan. I was going to nationals that the next year. I didn't want to have to suffer last minute to lose like 40 north of 40 pounds, which I ended up doing anyway. And I cut off a bunch of weight to make weight, competed, and I won my national competition, my very first natural national bodybuilding competition at 20 years old. Then I realized it would make sense to just main gain. And then ever since then, I was doing that, right? So I cut down to 165 pounds and a quarter pound to make weight for my welterweight division that year, and then slowly started growing from that class into an class the next year. I bumped up 10 pounds in lean muscle in 1 year just by main gaining instead of having to put on a whole shit ton of fat and water and muscle and then losing fat, water, and muscle to cut down to make weight. So that all happened. And when it was all said and done with, um, I realized, okay, yeah, I'm gonna main gain. I'm gonna continue just to eat just slightly less than my maintenance calories and feed myself a ridiculous amount of protein, which instead was at the time was just 200. And then I bumped it up to like 240 and 270 between their grams of protein per day and just stayed consistent with that. Trained my ass off. I hit high carb days, low carb days. But the fact of the matter is, I did not pay too much attention or put so much of an emphasis on being in a 5,000 fucking calorie surplus, right? So that's something that I changed and it worked out for the better because every single year I got bigger, I got leaner, I got more symmetrical, and I was in more control. My muscle got denser. On top of that, my digestion was way better. I had less digestive issues. I just felt more comfortable in my skin, just being constantly lean the way I've been since I was born. And it just paid off. right? So like going from 2012 to 2022, it was a ride. It was a ride of probably way more mistakes than correct things, that went on. Like I made more mistakes and more errors than things I did right. That's just me keeping it a stack. But if you don't learn from your mistakes, then I guess that's the true failure, right? I learned from every single mistake, including the mistake of setting a goal that was too high, because inevitably I hit it and surpassed it. Because once I hit the 200 pounds, I'm like, what? I'm like 20 years old. I'm 200 pounds. I could definitely get an IFBB Pro card. And at that time, actually, it's funny for those of you that actually know me and have been following me for years. When my Instagram handle was Vegeta Pump, what was it? I put in my bio. I said I'm going to be an IFBB Pro in the year 2020, right? And that was in like 2017. I put that there. 2017, 2018. I was like IFBB Pro 2020. That was in my bio. And somebody forced me to remove it, and I removed it because I was just impressionable at the time. But the funniest thing ever is that even though that was an unrealistic fucking goal, and I just want an amateur show, like who the fuck am I to say that I'm going to be a pro at whatever time? It's let alone a few years. In like 3 years, 2 years. The funniest thing about that is I didn't turn pro in 2020. I turned pro in 2021. So just fucking think about it. Setting high goals, even if you fail and you continue to push, is like the best thing you could possibly do for yourself. It's discouraging, but it builds fucking character. Like you need to have that in your mind. Otherwise, you can't even see what's going to happen in 10 years. Personally, I couldn't see what was happening in 10 years. I was always looking at the short term. 3 to 4 years at the end of high school, I'm 200 pounds. Okay, boom. Fucked up, missed that, hit it in 5 years. Still awesome, still hit it. Okay, well, I'm going to be an IFBB Pro in the year 2020 when I am 22. Fuck, missed that. Well, technically, I only missed that because COVID happened and there was no show in 2020. So who knows if I could turn pro in 2020? I don't know. I don't care. The fact of the matter is, it didn't happen that year and it happened the year after that. Just like the same thing with my goal of 200 pounds. Didn't have happen the year of 2016. It happened in the offseason, leaving 2017, going to 2018. You know what I'm saying? Just keep that in your mind. Keep that in your mind. This is facts. This is like my legitimate experience. And I'm so glad that you guys and girls are sitting here to share it with me because, I mean, otherwise, who else would I be sharing this with? Other than the meatheads that I train with. But that's it. That's all. Let me just break it down, do a little recap for you guys and girls that have just tuned into the live stream. All right. So the first pillar of this conversation, out of 4 pillars, was I stopped doing the old school bulking and cutting, switched to main gaining, which essentially just means eating 200 or anything really 100 to 200 calories less than your maintenance required calories, and keeping your protein really high. The second thing was I used to do a million different workout splits, and then I just decided to focus on which workouts work best for me, whether there were machines or certain compound movements, and stick to them. And that's always worked. If I need to switch anything up, I switch minute workouts or the volume in certain workouts to improve certain weak points. The third thing is consistency over intensity, but still be fucking intense. It's more important to just show up once a week, every single fucking week for 10 years than to show up every single day for 3 years straight and then not do anything else for 7 years, right? But when I am showing up on those one day a week, if I ever do, uh, on my worst weeks, I'm going to put as much intensity forward as possible. So consistency over intensity, but still be intense when you show up. And last but not least, set high goals, even if you fail. Keep pushing because I'll tell you, I failed to hit every single goal in terms of the deadline, but it inevitably and eventually succeeded in every goal. As I told you, hitting 200 pounds after I leave high school, right? Didn't happen right after high school. It happened the year after getting my IFBB Pro card. Said I was going to do it in 2020. Didn't happen in 2020 because COVID fucking took off the show, but it happened 2021, right? So just set ridiculously high goals for yourself, but not in vain. Actually work towards them. All right. So thank you so much for your time and attention today. This is the number one podcast for anyone on this planet, country, or nation who wants to make an amazing mental and physical natural transformation. Don't forget to implement at least one thing from this podcast. And remember, information without implementation is just fucking noise. So if you laughed, cried, got any value, motivation, or inspiration from this podcast, share it out to one friend who you know will enjoy it too. Shameless plug. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, MATT space BUTALE, to see how I live my life outside of social media. And also, if you want to lose 10 to 25 pounds and become a part of the Natural Nomad Academy, where I'm the head coach, feel free to DM me and I'll see if you'll be a good fit. Again, you do have to qualify. If you don't qualify, I'll let you know what you need to change in order to join the program. All right. It's been nice chatting. Hope you like what today's topic was about. Natural IFBB Pro Matt signing out. Boom. Podcast is recorded. What it is, folks. I'm gonna read the comments over here on what you call it, Instagram here, and then I'm gonna dip out and just get my cardio on. Had a busy morning. Boom, and then my fucking live stream on Facebook crapped out, so peace out. Um, Boom. Whoa, fucking TikTok. All right, so let's go. Let's look here. Let's see. Kirby's like, I'm chilling, fam. About to set up the garage so I can train again. Fucking go, bro. Do it. Full send. Shout out to everybody that joined. Holy shit. I do not have the time to read everyone's name, but just fucking know I love you. Yo, Sethian, what's good, bro? I see you, Holmes. What's good? What's good? Oh, Leroy in the house. What's happening? He says, yo, boy, jumping in. He says, jumping in while he's working remotely. Might as well listen to my boy Matt. Hey, what's up? So yeah, you're working remotely. What's up? What's good? I hope you fucking enjoying yourself, baby. What's happening? Pat says, big fan. I appreciate you, Pat. Much fucking love. I appreciate you, dog. Love Preet, new client, new fucking natural nomad. I appreciate you for tuning into the live stream, brother. Dondre, what's up? Leroy says, you can make changes to the quality of your movements, being in complete control of the movement, time under tension, let alone progressive overload. Absolutely. And so many other variables too. So many other, but definitely those are like, for me at least, the main few. Yeah, 100%. You don't need to switch from fucking dumbbell press to bench press and ignore, dumbbell press altogether because you believe that the bench press is going to give you some edge or whatever. And maybe if you do respond better on that, then cool. But I personally don't. So I keep it to a strict dumbbell lifestyle unless I'm doing incline barbell bench because incline barbell actually works for me. Decline or not decline, but flat bench, just I can do it, but it doesn't really do much for me in terms of learn that. It took me like 2 years to learn that. So I stopped flat benching, or I removed, or not removed, I replaced flat benching with incline benching in my routine. And I noticed that I get a whole lot better results, feel a lot stronger, and I'm able to isolate my chest a whole lot better. Um, so that's cash money, like what you said there. Homegirl, I see you. Amritage, thanks for joining. Leroy says quality and efficiency. Fuck yeah, that's the truth. Jassy, what's good? Adam, Jake, Drede, what's good, bro? I fucking see you, bro. Leroy says, I deload every week, every sixth week of each meso. I love it. Always look forward to it. Again, you got to be due diligent. You have to do due diligence. You have to be smart, proactive instead of reactive. Do your rest and recovery before your rest and recovery does you. You know what I'm saying? Fuck, you don't want to get injured. So that's smart. Real that spread. What's up, dog? Fucking dude, what's up? He says, what are your macros during prep? My macros vary, man. They vary every single prep, but my macros for this prep, off the top of my head, if I even remember, fuck, it changed in peak week. It changed at least like 5 times. Like every day was a different macro layout. So for the bulk of it, though, for the last 2 weeks, leading up to peak week, my macros were what? Protein was at like 220 to 250 or 240, between there. 220 to 250. Carbs were at like 50 to 100, and then of course peak week that changed. It went from 0 to 50 in between there, fluctuating like sometimes 25 gram days for carbs. And fats were actually not that low. Fats were low. Fats were like 30, 40. And that's just off the top of my head from 2 weeks out. But 1 week out, it literally changed every day leading up to the show. But the carbs were between 0 and 50. Protein still stayed the same between 220 to 250, but closer to 220 as I led up to the show. But I did not go under 220 grams or 200 grams, I think, protein per day in the last peak week that I had. But again, macros only apply specifically to specific people that are doing a specific thing, that have their genetics laid out the way that they do, their training regime is laid out the way that it is. Like if I give you my same macros and you're not training the way that I'm training, doing the cardio that I'm doing, you can't expect the same results, right? I was still doing an hour of cardio every single day as well, off of those low macros. So I think my calories were not even, they weren't even 2,000 calories. I wasn't even doing 2,000 calories. It goes like 1900, 1700, and then dropping closer to the show. So I was eating bikini weight style, but my protein was high. So yeah, good question though. Patience was good. William, what's up? Tyson says, I've quickly learned today consistency is definitely key. I've watched my body transform in little time with having a sustainable training plan and a meal plan. So, quick story recap for you guys and girls. The question or the comment that I just read was from one of my new clients. He's only been with me not even 2 weeks. His name is Tyson Barrett. And in 1.5 weeks, he went from 235 pounds to now 225 pounds and counting. This guy's a fucking machine, but he says it. He says the best. I'm going to repeat it. He says, I've quickly learned consistency is definitely key. I've watched my body transform in little time with having a sustainable training plan and meal plan. So, what's the key here? What's the point? Guys and girls, if you don't have a sustaining training plan and a sustainable meal plan and you're not consistent, you're not going to really change at all. So salute, shout out to you, Tyson, for keeping it a stack with us here and sharing your experience with the Natural Nomad Academy. Again, he's fucking crushing it because he just does what's right. He invests in help if he doesn't know, what to do on his own. And that's something that I continue to do. Matter of fact, sweater that I'm wearing for my business mentor. And I got it. I was awarded it once I hit a new milestone for my business and broke 5 figures last month. So I pay for help too. I'm not fucking perfect, even though it may look like it. And I definitely have had coaches in my life, and I'm probably gonna hire another coach too, because you can never stop learning. You know what I'm saying? So fucking love that there, Tyson. Thank you so much for sharing that one. Um, let's see here. Stir Blue. See you, homie says, should I hop on the sauce in 1 month into this shit? Fuck no. No, I'm not even gonna entertain that. You should shoot me a DM because I don't want to flame you here. I don't want to make it seem like I'm being rude or anything like that. But shoot me a DM, buddy, and we can talk about that personally because I don't want to air your dirty laundry out. Even though, like, your Instagram is pretty private. Tyson says, we morphing out here. Yo, he's a natural nomad. Let's fucking go. Let's fucking go. He's morphing out here. You guys are better catch up. Tyson's leaving out in the dust. Isaac, what's good? Jaden, what's happening? One Oak. Let's go. All right, people. That's it. That's all. Thank you so much for tuning into today's podcast episode. I'll be back again tomorrow with another podcast. You know what's good. Hope you have the best motherfucking Tuesday of your life. IFBB Pro Matt signing out. Boom.